The dinner that didn't exist? They took my money, held a party without me, and thought I'd stay quiet. They were wrong. I arrived at the rental house with a pie in one hand and a sinking feeling in my chest. It was supposed to be a weekend of reconnection, a long overdue family reunion. I paid for the Airbnb, reserved the restaurant, sent calendar invites, even made a group chat no one ever used. This wasn't some last-minute thing. I'd spent weeks planning it, organizing the logistics around everyone's schedules, paying out of pocket for things people said they'd Venmo me for later, and sending gentle reminders like I was coordinating a corporate retreat instead of a dinner with blood relatives. But when I pulled into the gravel driveway just outside of Cedar Pines, something was off. The porch light was off. No cars. No laughter from inside. No smells of cooking or warm hugs or that comforting chaos family's supposed to bring. I double-checked my phone. Friday, 6:37 p.m. Exactly when we were all supposed to meet up. I was 7 minutes late, even. Typical me, anxious about being early. But the house? Completely dark. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. I got out of the car, pie still warm, heart now racing. Knocked once, then twice. No answer. Used the code the host sent to unlock the door. The keypad blinked green. I stepped in. It was spotless. No jackets on hooks. No half-unpacked suitcases. No half-drunk coffee mugs. The fridge was empty. Not even water bottles. There were no guests. Just me. At first, I told myself I must have mixed up the dates. Maybe everyone was coming tomorrow. Maybe they stopped somewhere for dinner first. I texted the family group chat. Hey, I'm here. Where's everyone else? No response. I waited. 10 minutes. Then 30. Still nothing. Then my sister Camille texted me directly. No hello. No apology. Just, we decided to do our own thing. No need to worry about us. I stared at the screen, stunned. Wait, what do you mean? You're not coming at all. Her response came fast. We're already here. Just not at the house. Chill, Marcus. Already here? I stepped outside and looked down the empty street. Here where? I called her. She didn't pick up. A few minutes later, my mom, Nadine, finally called. Marcus, sweetheart, don't overreact. Everyone's just hanging out at Eli's rental instead. It's more cozy. Cozy? So everyone changed the plan and just didn't tell me? She sighed like I was being dramatic. You've always been a bit intense, honey. It wasn't that deep. You were probably busy anyway. I blinked. My hands were actually shaking now. Busy? I flew in. I bought everything. I paid for the house. Another sigh. This one deeper. Like I was inconveniencing her by making sense. Well, it's done. Everyone's comfortable now. Just swing by in the morning. No big deal. Is Dad there too? Of course. Camille picked him up from the airport. That was the moment it clicked. They'd all coordinated behind my back. Every one of them. The entire family. And no one thought to include me. I hung up. No goodbye. Just silence. I sat down on the steps of the empty porch and stared at the road. Dark. Still. Dead quiet. The pie was cooling on the railing beside me, untouched. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it wasn't malicious. Maybe it was just poor communication. An accident. But deep down, I knew better. I'd felt it for a while, that distance. That discomfort when I walked into her room. The way Camille cut me off mid-sentence like she was embarrassed for me. How Mom never really looked me in the eye anymore. How Dad barely texted back unless I mentioned money. Still, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect to walk into a reunion I paid for, only to find out they'd planned a second one, without me. That night, I sat on the edge of the rented bed, staring at the pine trees outside, and realized I'd paid to be excluded. Literally funded my own erasure. The next morning, I tried again. I showed up at Eli's rental. No one answered the door. Camille texted, "Now's not a good time. Can we talk later?" Later never came. And that was when I stopped making excuses. Because this wasn't a one-off. This was intentional. This was coordinated. This was punishment wrapped in fake pleasantries and gaslighting texts. I packed up the pie, drove into town, and checked into a quiet little hotel that smelled like coffee and old books. And I made a decision. If they wanted me gone, fine. But they'd learned that cutting me out came with a receipt. And I had every single charge. You can only get laughed at for so long before something inside you shifts. The morning after they ghosted me, I sat in a booth at a small diner 2 towns over, staring into a cup of burnt coffee, going over the receipts. Not metaphorical ones. Real ones. Airfare, $364. Rental house, $1,139 for 2 nights. Catering deposit at Remy's Garden Bistro, $500 non-refundable. Groceries, travel insurance, gas, fees, tips. Printing out custom place cards like an idiot because I thought we'd do something special. Total damage? $2,942.73 all paid up front. All ignored. Not one person offered to split costs. Not even my mom, Nadine, who used to swear she'd always have my back. I didn't feel angry in the traditional sense. I felt empty. Like whatever naive part of me that still hoped for closeness had quietly bled out on the doorstep of that empty Airbnb. And now? I had nothing left but numbers. Numbers they were going to see. I sent the group chat one message. Attached is a breakdown of all costs from the reunion I covered. Since the agreed-upon gathering didn't occur due to decisions made without my input, and since I alone incurred these charges, I'm asking that the total be divided evenly among the 7 people who were originally invited. That's $420.39 each. I kept it short, professional. No insults. No sarcasm. Just math. Then I attached a Google Doc with the itemized breakdown and pressed send. It took all of 4 minutes for Camille to respond. You've got to be kidding. Then Eli jumped in. We didn't agree to any of that. You just took over. And my mom, sweet Nadine, chimed in with, Honey, I love you, but this is really inappropriate. We can't be expected to pay for plans we weren't involved in. I just stared at my screen and smiled. You were involved. Until you weren't. They kept texting. Accusations. Mockery. A couple guilt trips sprinkled in for good measure. Camille even said, maybe next time don't make everything about yourself. Which was rich, coming from someone who literally changed the family itinerary without telling the person paying for it. So I gave them 72 hours. If I don't receive payment or a discussion of a payment plan, I'll proceed through Horizon Financial Recovery. Nothing personal. They thought I was bluffing. I wasn't. I'd worked at a collections firm straight out of college. Part-time. Low-level. Enough to know how these things worked. There were services, legit ones, that help mediate personal debts when people ghost on shared expenses. Horizon was one of them. They took a percentage, but they handled everything professionally. No threats. No harassment. Just formal collection requests sent via certified mail. All I had to do was submit the paperwork and evidence. Receipts. Screenshots. The invite emails. Calendar confirmations. The texts about Venmoing me later. And then, of course, the conversation where they all admitted they bailed after I'd already booked and paid. I uploaded everything, filed the claim, and went back to my life. 1 week later, Nadine called. Not texted. Called. That never happened unless someone was dead. Marcus, why are we getting notices from a financial agency? Because you cost me $3,000 and mocked me when I asked for it back. This is absurd. You're embarrassing the family. No. I think the part where you let me sit alone in an empty house you knew I paid for, that was the embarrassing part. She sighed. That same, tired sigh she used when I got too emotional as a kid. Why are you being so cold? Because being warm got me abandoned with a pie in my lap. Camille emailed me the next day. A formal letter. Terse. Defensive. Claiming she had no legal obligation to pay me back, and that if I continued harassing the family, she'd speak to her lawyer. I forwarded it to Horizon. They said, noted. We'll proceed accordingly. But the real moment of satisfaction came when Camille's fiancé, Andrew, messaged me separately. Hey, I don't want to get in the middle of this, but your claim froze one of our joint credit cards, and it's kind of messing up our wedding planning. Can we just work something out? I didn't answer, because now they were finally feeling inconvenienced. And all I'd done was ask to be seen. A few more days passed. Then Eli paid his portion, $420.39. Right into my PayPal with a note. I still think this is dramatic, but I don't want to deal with this. Camille? Still silent. Mom? Still trying to guilt me into dropping it. Dad texted a thumbs-up emoji and then sent me a check with $200 short, which Horizon immediately flagged. Then came the kicker. I got a call from a local Cedar Pines officer, Officer Langston, who said a complaint had been filed about unlawful threats of extortion. Apparently, someone, I wonder who, tried to claim I was running a scam. I explained everything. Sent him the documentation, the receipts, the calendar invites, the texts, the passive-aggressive emails. Langston called me back 2 hours later. Yeah, we're not pursuing anything. Looks like a civil disagreement. Actually, kinda genius. What you did. Appreciate it. Also, your cousin Camille's really not likable. We both laughed. I went for a walk that night. Cool breeze. Quiet neighborhood. My shoulders a little lighter. Because for the first time, I wasn't the family doormat. I wasn't the peacekeeper. I wasn't the one begging to be included. I was the one holding the receipts. And I wasn't afraid to send them. The messages didn't come all at once. They trickled in. Like a leaky faucet you keep telling yourself you'll fix, but never do. And just like that faucet, they weren't there to help. They were there to remind me of the drip, the subtle pressure, the emotional erosion I'd been drowning in for years without even knowing it. The first message came from my mother. Not a call. Not even a proper email. Just a forwarded article titled, "Why Family Estrangement is Often Caused by Miscommunication, Not Malice." No comment. No context. Just the link. I stared at it for a full minute before deleting it, because I knew what it meant. Not, "I'm sorry, but you misunderstood." Then Camille posted a story to her private Instagram, which, by the way, I was no longer on, but Sam, an old friend who still followed her, screenshotted it for me. A photo of her and my mom clinking wine glasses, captioned, "Family is who shows up, even in hard seasons." No tags. No names. But the message? Loud and clear. A few days later, I got a real message. From Nadine again. This one longer. She said she'd been reflecting. That maybe she could have handled things better. That she just thought I was in one of your moods and didn't realize how hurt I'd been. Then came the kicker. "You know I'm not good with feelings, Marcus. You've always been so much more emotional than the rest of us. That's not bad, just different. You've got to remember, we didn't know how to include you without triggering your sensitivity." I almost dropped my phone. That wasn't an apology. That was textbook gaslighting. Because this wasn't about me being emotional. It was about them being calculated. They'd chosen to exclude me. Intentionally. And now that the consequences were real, they were trying to paint it as a misunderstanding caused by my fragile nature. Classic. But I didn't respond. Not yet. Because the messages didn't stop. Eli texted next. "Hey, just FYI, Camille's trying to spin this at work like you overreacted. She's saying you set her up. Did you tell her you sent the money?" I replied, "I did. She told me I was weak." That tracks. She said I betrayed the family, which is hilarious since none of them paid a cent. And then, out of nowhere, I got a Facebook message from someone I hadn't heard from in years, Uncle Patrick. The one who skipped every reunion since 2010. "Hey kid, heard you stirred the pot. Just wanted to say, proud of you. About time someone held them accountable." I laughed. Actually laughed. Because Patrick always had one foot out of the dysfunction, and now he was straight up cheering me on. But the wildest moment? Remy's Garden Bistro, the place I'd placed the catering order with, reached out personally. The manager, a woman named Helena, emailed me. "We were sorry to hear your event was canceled. Our team had everything prepped. I just wanted to tell you something. Your mom stopped by 3 days before your booking and told our front desk there had been a change of venue. She told us not to contact you and that she'd handle the payment. Obviously, that never happened, and the kitchen prepped anyway. So when no one showed up, we were confused. We didn't charge you for the full package, just the deposit, but I thought you should know. That was it. They've been planning the switch days before I even got there." Nadine lied to the restaurant to cover her tracks. Told them to ignore me. Made sure no one gave me a heads up that the reunion had already been relocated. This wasn't miscommunication. It was sabotage. And now? They wanted forgiveness without ownership. I finally responded to Nadine's message. Just one sentence. "Love isn't silent exclusion followed by revisionist history." She didn't reply. But Camille did. A single word. Dramatic. That's when I decided I wasn't done. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about reclaiming the narrative before they rewrote me into the villain. So I did what they feared most. I started writing everything down. Not for social media. Not for sympathy. But because the truth deserves a voice. And this time, it would be mine. It was Eli who sent it. A full screenshot dump. Unprompted. No warning. He just messaged, "You should see what's been said. I'm done pretending." Attached was a Google Drive link. Inside, hundreds of screenshots. A family group chat titled Core Circle. I wasn't in it. Never had been. This wasn't the usual group thread. Not the one I'd been added to for holidays and reminders and once-a-year birthday wishes. This was the real one. The one where they lived. Where they plotted. Mocked. Coordinated things like leaving me out of the Cedar Pines reunion. And far, far worse. The first thing I saw? A message from my mom. "Marcus is going to ask about Thanksgiving soon. Someone else tell him this year. I don't want to do the guilt dance." My sister Camille replied with a laughing emoji. "Just tell him it's a very small thing this year. For immediate family only." "Isn't he immediate?" Someone else joked. "He's selectively immediate," Camille replied. Laughter. I felt sick. But I kept scrolling. Because some part of me needed to know. To see how far it really went. There was an entire thread about a job I'd lost last year. He's unemployed again? Maybe if he was less sensitive and more useful, he'd keep a job. I told you he was going to try and come home for a bit, Camille said. I already told Mom to say no. He'll just make everything about himself again, my cousin Anna added. He always plays the victim. They weren't just ignoring me. They were campaigning against me. At every turn. Turning my grief into a punchline. My generosity into manipulation. My boundaries into mood swings. Even the Airbnb I'd booked for the reunion? Camille had found the listing link in the original invite I sent and shared it in the chat. Here's the house he paid for. Cute, right? Too bad he'll be alone in it. My mother responded, that's his comfort zone. I stopped breathing for a second. Not because of the words, but because of the truth behind them. These weren't casual slips. They weren't jokes taken out of context. They were coordinated, deliberate, cruel, and worst of all, no one stopped them. Not once. No one said, hey, that's too far. No one said, maybe Marcus deserves better. Not even Eli, until now. His message followed the folder link. I should have told you. I just didn't want to be next. I didn't blame him, because I saw what happened to people who defended me. Eli tried once, apparently. Told them I wasn't that bad. Their response? Then you plan the next holiday. See how long it takes him to center himself. I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because screaming wouldn't change who they were. What hit me hardest wasn't just the betrayal. It was how familiar it felt. I started remembering moments from childhood, things I hadn't thought about in years. The way Camille always got to sit in the front seat. The way Mom called me too sensitive whenever I cried. How Dad gave me books instead of hugs. How everyone else's needs were treated like rules, but mine were always requests. This didn't start with the Airbnb. This was legacy. Inheritance. A culture of exclusion I had been raised inside, but never part of. I spent that entire night scrolling. And by morning, I wasn't devastated anymore. I was done. So I wrote an email. To all of them. Subject line. Thanks for confirming everything I suspected. And in the body, don't worry about dividing the money anymore. I'll consider it payment for clarity. I've read your messages. I've seen how you speak when I'm not in the room. And for once, I'm grateful for your honesty, even if it wasn't meant for me. You didn't exclude me to avoid drama. You excluded me because you enjoyed it. I'm not angry. I'm free. From this point forward, I'm removing myself from the family chat, the calendar, and the lineage of excuses. Whatever story you tell others about why we're estranged, I hope it makes you feel better. Because I feel lighter than I ever have. Don't contact me again. I hit send. Blocked all of them. Deleted the thread. And for the first time in my life, I didn't second guess it. You'd think after that email, they'd go quiet. But narcissists never go silent. They shift. And Camille? She didn't waste a second before launching her version of events into the extended family. I found out from Aunt Gina, one of the few relatives who's always been quietly supportive. She called me 2 days after I sent the goodbye email. Hey, Han, just checking in. Camille's saying some things I wanted to ask you about directly. I was already bracing for it. Like what? That you're going through a tough time. That you might be overreacting to something that wasn't intentional. Classic. The soft smear. The concern-flavored character assassination. I could practically hear Camille's voice in Gina's retelling. He's just going through stuff. You know how Marcus gets. We didn't exclude him. There was just miscommunication. We love him. But he has a tendency to make everything feel personal. Every line a careful stitch in the new narrative. A quilt of plausible deniability. But this time, I was ready. Gina, I'm going to send you a folder. Read it. Then call me back. If you still think I'm overreacting after that, I'll drop it. She didn't argue. I sent the link. The screenshots. The receipts. The calendar invites. The messages they wrote in the secret chat, laughing about ditching me. Insulting me. Planning the lie. 20 minutes later, she called again. This time, she sounded winded. Oh my God. Marcus. I had no idea. They didn't want you to. That call was the beginning of something new. Gina told her sister, Aunt Marla. Marla told her son, Derek. One by one, branches of the family tree started leaning away from the trunk. Not all of them, but enough. Enough for Camille to feel the shift. The next day, she emailed me. Formal tone. Corporate grammar. Like she was talking to HR. I'm disappointed that you're spreading private family conversations outside the group. This is only causing more division. And there it was. You're the problem again. Not we hurt you, but you're making it worse by speaking up. I didn't respond to Camille. I posted instead, not to shame them, but to reclaim the truth. I wrote a long post, not naming names, not tagging relatives, just the facts, just the shape of the betrayal told plainly in my voice for the first time. I titled it, What It Feels Like to Pay for a Family Gathering You're Not Welcome At. I described the Airbnb, the empty house, the silence, the laughter I heard later in a video someone forgot to make private. I ended it like this. This isn't about getting money back. This is about truth. About what happens when you spend years asking, what did I do wrong? And finally realize the answer is you loved people who only liked you when you made them feel comfortable. The post went viral in hours. Thousands of likes. Hundreds of comments. Stories from strangers who said, this is my family, too. Even a few acquaintances from Cedar Pines DM'd me. I always thought your sister was kind of fake. But this, wow. Camille freaked out. I know because Gina forwarded me a message she sent to the Core Circle thread, which Eli is now secretly monitoring for me. It said, he's ruining our reputation. I'm calling a lawyer if he doesn't take that down. They never did call, because there was nothing to sue over. Everything I wrote was true. Everything was documented. Everything was mine. And they knew it. My dad finally broke his silence with a one-line email. I'm disappointed in how you've handled this. To which I replied, you didn't handle anything. That's the problem. In the weeks that followed, more people reached out. Some apologized for standing by. Others just said they'd been there too, silenced by nicer words, cut by quieter knives. I started getting messages from people I barely remembered. You were always the kind one. I'm so sorry for what they did. Thank you for speaking up. That one stuck with me. Because for years, I'd been told that silence was strength. That keeping the peace was noble. That speaking up made me dramatic, difficult, ungrateful. But the truth is, silence only protects the ones who hurt you. I started writing again. Not just emails and posts, real writing. Essays, short stories, reflections. I wrote about grief, loneliness, and the slow burn of betrayal that comes not in explosions, but in missed invitations and quiet mockery. I submitted one to a local magazine. They published it, titled it, Ghosted at the Family Table, the response? Overwhelming. Camille went quiet after that. So did my mom. Their silence wasn't peaceful, though. It was defensive, strategic. The quiet of people who thought their version of the story would always win and suddenly realized it was slipping. It's been 4 months since I sent that final email, 3 since I posted the story. And for the first time in my life, the silence feels good. Not heavy, not guilt-soaked or loaded with things I'm supposed to chase. Just quiet and peaceful. Like I stepped out of a storm I didn't even realize I'd been living in. I still get occasional messages from people who saw the story. Some ask if I've reconnected with my family. Others ask if I regret going public. The answer to both is no, not even a little. Because this wasn't a feud. This was an awakening. They didn't cut me off. They just assumed I'd keep showing up no matter how little they gave. They believed I'd always want a seat at their table, even if that seat was cold, cornered, and unpaid for. But I don't miss the table. I don't miss the games. And I don't miss them. I did get one more message from Nadine, sent 2 weeks ago. A short email, titled, Family Still Matters. It read, I know you're still angry. And I'm sorry if we made you feel left out. But I don't think it's healthy to dwell in this space. We're family. At the end of the day, nothing changes that. I read it twice. And then I close the laptop without replying. Because here's the truth. Family is not who shares your last name. It's not who shows up to the holidays. It's who doesn't need you to shrink to fit in their story. There was a time when I would have taken that email as a sign. A door cracking open. An invitation to fix what had been broken. But I know better now. That wasn't a door. That was bait. And I'm no longer biting. I've made peace with the fact that some people will never understand the damage they do. Because to them, if it wasn't loud or physical or dramatic, it doesn't count. But emotional starvation is still abuse. Mocking someone behind their back is still betrayal. And orchestrating someone's exclusion, then blaming them for feeling it, is cruel, no matter how nice the tone. The hardest part? Not mourning who they are. It's mourning who I used to be around them. The version of me that was always waiting for a reply. Always twisting himself into someone more tolerable. Always second-guessing what he felt, because they convinced him his feelings were too much. That version of me? He deserved better. And now? He's getting it. These days, I've made my own table. Literally. Bought second-hand wood. Built it with a friend. Stained it in the garage on a Saturday. It's not fancy, but it's solid. And it holds everything I need. Friends who show up. Laughter that isn't rehearsed. People who see me and don't ask me to tone it down. I hosted a friend giving last month. 12 people came. Some brought dishes, some just brought stories. Someone even brought pie, and this time, it didn't sit untouched on an empty porch. At one point, someone said, this feels like family. And I didn't flinch. I didn't correct them. Because it did. And not once did I wonder if Camille or Nadine would have liked the decor. The truth is, I didn't lose my family. I left them. I walked out of a room that only applauded me when I kept my mouth shut. And I'm never going back. So no, I wasn't cut off. I wasn't disowned. I wasn't erased. I left. And that's the difference between surviving and living. Surviving is waiting to be chosen. Living is choosing yourself. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it too.